look over there on your screen and see if you're catching this. Great. Hey everybody. All right. Well, welcome. This is our first Twitch TV live presentation of Chromancer. We're going to show you a little bit of our alpha version here that's obviously not published, a little behind the scenes, and introduce ourselves. I'm actually sitting next to Jon-Pal, although you can't see him. He's one of our partners.
Hey guys, I wave at you.
He's monitoring the chat log, and we will obviously be happy to take questions as we go. I think we're going to get more people as we go along. So I guess we should dive in. Obviously, we're running a Kickstarter campaign. My name is George, by the way. If you've seen the Kickstarter video, you've seen me wear my Thundercats shirt and talk about that a lot in the video. But right now, what I'm wearing, I'll stand up so you can see this. Actually, I'll put myself on screen better so you can see this. 1 second here. Sorry about that. Does it work now?
Yeah, it works.
Okay, that was stupid. We were saying these are t-shirts that we have we're going to have these for the conventions. And our early adopters, if anybody shows up early enough in the day, we'll be able to give some of them out. So stay tuned for that. Let me switch back here. Okay. This is our very old school lobby. One thing you'll notice, because this is the very, very, very first public alpha of anything, is that all our graphics are handmade and not pro in this lobby. This will all be replaced later. I'm just going to use this to get into a game. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start up a game with Jon-Pal. I will invite you. And I am going to play using a red deck. I think I'm just going to play with the Horde here. The Horde, a demon deck. That is a red deck, okay? And you should grab a blue deck, I think. Okay. So you see we're here in our alpha. This is pretty representational. Some of these graphics are obviously hand-drawn and will be replaced, but we just want to run you through a game and sort of explain how Chromancer works. And if you have any questions at any point, I hope that you'll enter those questions into the chat box down there, and we'll walk you through whatever answers we have. So basically, Chromancer is a collectible card game. For those of you that don't quite know what that means, very simply, it's a game where you bring your own deck to a duel. You play against another player with a deck you've constructed, and part of the strategy is in figuring out how to build that deck, but also then how to play it in the strategy of the game. So I'm going to be playing with a red deck, and Jon-Pal will be playing with a blue deck. The only significance to the colors is that they have different tendencies. Red will be a color that tends to be very aggressive, which is, of course, the case in most card games, and blue will be a more neutral color. And that will affect how we sort of play the game. This first phase, what you see on the screen right now, is the setup phase. When you play a game of Chromancer, you start out by establishing basically where your structures are going to be, your strongholds. which is sort of the central point of play. And you do that in a setup phase. You change turns, setting these things up. And unlike a lot of the games out there where you're just trying to beat on the opponent and knock his hit points to 0, you have 3 targets that you're attacking in this game. That's what I'm about to set up here. So I think we're just going to walk through the game and stop us, ask us any questions that you have on the way using the little chat on your Twitch. We have it sort of off screen here. We'll see your questions and we'll stop and answer them. So I've got 3 forests in my hand here. Those are basic fields. I'm going to start by defining the play area I want to play in by laying one of these forests. I'll put it right here in the middle. You can see that there's 15 spaces of width here, so I have a lot of options. There's quite a lot of strategy to whether I'm going to put all of my strongholds near each other or far apart from each other. The basic win condition of the game is Jon-Pal is going to try to destroy my 3 strongholds, and I'm going to try to destroy his. If they're close together, that's perhaps easier to defend, but it may also be more difficult for me to get access to his wherever he's going to put them. So there are various strategies. I'll put this forest over here. Fields such as these forests and the waterfront that he's played up here double as not just sort of the definition of the playing field, but also they're your basic source of income. So I'm going to be drawing 1 income from each of these things that I lay. So when I start the game, you can see already my income will be 2. I don't know if you can read that right here. It seems like we have more people joining us. So if you're just arriving, this is a demo of the alpha version of Chromancer. Many of these graphics are just our stand-ins for now, but we are trying to show you some of the gameplay. And this is the setup phase of the game. I will put the other forest right here. Jon-Pal is working on his waterfronts there. An average game of Chromancer we think takes about 15 minutes or so. It depends a lot on your play style and obviously your deck style. If you have a stall deck, it will take longer. It also is going to depend on us implementing a little bit better UI that's going to be faster to use. So I have my 3 strongholds here. This is the castle, this is the treasury, which is actually now called the bank, and this is the graveyard. These 3 strongholds basically represent all of the different things I can do in the game, and they double as the targets that my opponent is going to try to attack. So I have to put these in strategic positions. He's going to be trying to destroy these all game. My castle is basically my deck. So wherever I put this, I'm going to be drawing cards from that pile on the field. And when my opponent moves a creature to somewhere near there, he'll be able to attack it and force cards out of my deck. Literally like milling my deck by attacking it. So where I put it on the board is relevant. Similarly for my bank, that's where my little pile of resources is going to be. He can move a creature near there and steal resources from me as it goes. And then my graveyard here, of course, is my discard pile. He can attack that, and he can knock cards out of my graveyard and make them leave play permanently. Chromancer is a game with fairly small decks. We only have 24 cards in a deck. And at the end of every single turn, 1 card is going to recycle itself automatically from my discard pile back into my deck. So it's actually quite important to keep cards in your discard pile. And at the same time, it's quite important to not have your discard pile destroyed, because if my opponent were to destroy my graveyard, all of the cards would leave play forever once I use them up, and they wouldn't go to the graveyard. So I'm going to lay these things down, and then we're going to sort of play through a few turns and show you how these things actually happen. I'll put my castle here on this middle piece of forest. I'm going to do that because all of the creatures that I summon, with a few exceptions, are going to emerge from my castle. So I want them to be somewhat central. Also, this is a fairly important position for me to defend. So I'd like it to be across from a space that he doesn't currently have a field in. That will prevent him from easily using creatures in that spot. Of course, he can just play a field there later on, but for the moment, I'm a little bit safe. Let's see where he puts his first thing. Put his castle right near mine. The little 18, I don't know if you probably can't see that, but that means there's 18 cards in my deck currently written under my castle there. All right, I will put my bank over here. out of harm's way. We're actually playing a fairly close-in game here, as you can see. I mean, there's a lot of space over to the sides. We could very easily have put stuff out on the edges, which is a strategy you can use. There are certain colors that when you play them, you'll want to put stuff all the way on the edge. In particular, what comes to mind is there's a purple color which has cards that can teleport. So if your creatures are able to teleport, you probably should put all your stuff at the edges and have them teleport in to attack your opponent and remain unassailable. Of course, this is a red and a blue playtest right now. My graveyard will go right here. And that's his bank. So now it's going to deal my first hand of cards. I get to go first. This is an example of a card that actually has some card art on it. That's a little bit more permanent, although these icons are not quite all there yet. This is a creature. I can click my inspector here and see which one it is. This is a red Hordeling. Normally I should be able to, of course, read that on the card, but again, this is stand-in. Red Hordeling is a very basic red creature. It's a demon, and it's very cheap. It costs only 3 to play, as you can see right here. My income is currently 3. You'll always start with an income of 3 because you've got these 3 fields that you put down in setup. They each generate 1. So the nice thing about a red deck being fast is I can play a creature my first turn, since I've drawn this Hordeling. I've got an extra forest too, which I'm going to stick over here somewhere to generate more income and keep it out of harm's way so he can't destroy it. Put that over there. I'm also going to draw a card. You're not forced to draw cards every turn, and the first card you draw every turn is completely free. So I'll draw that. I got another forest. Every other card that you draw, and you can draw unlimited cards every turn, every other card that you draw costs increasingly more. This is a game that doesn't really have problems with bad draws because you can draw as many cards as you want every turn.
George, one of the questions that's come up in the chat is about the number of colors in the game, how many colors are in the game, and whether we can make kind of rainbow decks or multicolored decks. You want to talk about that a bit?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's an interesting question because in a lot of games that have colors, you have colored resources, and so that kind of is what defines whether you're going to be able to use different colors in decks or not. It's just not efficient to have 5 different colors because you won't be able to draw the right resources. In our game, we don't have colored resources, so the fact is you could use a 12-color deck if you want to. Now, what makes that difficult, though, is that you have creatures which you can pay for with a colorless resource, but those creatures will only be able to use spells and items and build structures that are of their color. So in order to have an efficient deck, you'll want to probably not play that many colors. But it's certainly possible to play rainbow decks because, of course, there also are some creatures that have more access to other things. There might be an Arch-Wizard card that has the ability to play all spells of all colors. And one other thing I'll mention about that is we do have a race of creatures, humans, who are colorless and can actually, by definition, play all colors. So that's probably the basis of your rainbow deck. They have some disadvantages, too. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I think so.
There are 12 total colors, to be clear. It's pretty broad. Sorry. Next question.
Another question about fields and whether they produce different amounts of resources.
Yeah, there are 8 standard field types right now. I can run through them. I mean, it's forest, city, mountains, hills, desert, waterfront, plains, and something I can't remember, swamp. And those are your basic fields. You'll have access to as many of those cards as you want, basically, as a new player. And those generate 1 income per turn. There are special fields. You can't use those during setup, but you'll be able to play them later in the game. I should probably keep playing as I'm talking here. I'm going to Emergence Hordeling. I can't afford it. Oh, I drew a card, so I only have 2 income. I'll draw another card. That's another Hordeling. Great. So I'm going to end my turn here, and it will be JP's turn. Yeah, there will be other fields that have more income to them. The real way that you generate more income, though, is you build structures. In addition to these 3 strongholds that you have, you'll have other structures that are income generating. Let's see. Are you already done with your turn?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that was not very exciting. Let's see. I've got to keep track here of everything. Chromancer is a complex game. I have to make sure I have enough cards in my graveyard, enough cards in my castle, and I see that I have 5 chroma here right now, so I'm going to summon a creature before I accidentally use up my money buying cards. I'll draw 1 more card. It's not bad strategy in the beginning of the game to draw as many cards as you can. I'm actually going to keep this forest in my hand because if I want to move across from something and attack it, it's safer to put a field under my creature. Anytime a creature is standing in the void, which is basically a space that doesn't have a field on it, it will gradually lose health. And since I'm playing a red deck, my creatures are extremely weak when it comes to life. They have a lot of attack power, but for example, this Hordling only has 2 life points. So it will only last 1 full cycle, basically, in the void. We'll lose 1 life every turn, on my turn and on his. So I'm going to keep this forest in case I want to move it. Now when I emerge a creature, like I've put this Hordling out, I cannot attack with him this turn. That's pretty common in card games, but I can move him. So I'm going to move him over here. Get ready to start attacking this area. And I'll end my turn. This is a Pyralidium I have here in my hand. This is a structure that I'll use later. I build it on a forest. As you can see, I'm using forests in this deck. That's another thing about fields. You want to line them up with the abilities of your creatures and your various structures. This is a red structure that gets built on a forest, and it produces extra income for me every turn. And it produces extra income for me if it happens to be across from a forest. So it plays well against other decks that use forests, like green decks. Let's see what he's got here. A Hunter Shark. That looks scary. Sharks are definitely stronger than my little demon guy, so I need to be careful. Sharks are a bit annoying because if they attack you, you can't dodge the attack. I'll show you dodging attacks in just a second. Draw a couple cards here. Now I'm going to discard some cards because every turn, as I said earlier, 1 card is cycling from my discard pile back into my castle and back into my deck. And as that happens, it's depleting my graveyard. So if my discard pile goes to 0, that means that if he attacks my graveyard, it's going to be destroyed as soon as he attacks it. And that will mean I'll never have a discard pile the rest of the game, and all my cards, when I use them up, will forever be lost. I don't want that to happen. So I will discard this, and I will discard this. You can discard as many cards as you want, whenever you want. Alright, and now I'm going to attack him, because he deserves it. Well, actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a field here first, and I'm going to show you attacking a structure. So I'm going to move my creature over 1. I'm going to attack this structure. Attack. Bang. You see this little window appears here. This is our current UI, but the little window indicates that something is happening. If he were to want to counter that in some way, like by moving in to block me or so forth, he could pause it by clicking that little window and then doing whatever he wants and then unpausing it. That's our current system. I'm not sure why he didn't block my attack, but now his bank is destroyed, so that's not good for him. It means that he can no longer save resources from turn to turn. Anyway. I don't know what he's doing, but it must be something devious. Let's see, he's got his shark moved across from me. Hey, you just attacked me? Taking advantage of my narration? Fine then. So he managed to kill off my little guy there. Now next turn I'm going to put a guy out and we'll actually show you what's happening there. My turn again? I'm going to put this guy out here. Move him across. So I'm winning this game because I've knocked down his bank and I still have all 3 of my strongholds left. And he's crippled because he's only earning 1, 2, 3, 4 income per turn, and he can't save that income from turn to turn. So basically he can't use any card that costs more than 4 because the income won't get saved. So losing your bank early, not a good thing. You probably should have blocked that attack. You can see that strategy does matter. Alright, well I can't actually attack with this guy this turn, so I'm going to just end my turn. We are using somewhat simplistic decks, just for this first game. I have drawn a spell, though, which is quite nice. A fireball spell. I might use that to dispatch one of his creatures here. Why don't you attack me so that I can dodge? Show everybody how that works. Now, you might have noticed that I didn't dodge, and actually didn't even have the option to dodge. Normally there'd be a little thing that pops up and says dodge. Well, that's actually because he attacked me with a shark, and sharks have this ability you can see right here called pin. When this creature attacks, opposing creature may not move out of the way. That's pretty annoying. I'm going to have to figure out how to kill these guys without being in their way, obviously. That's something that probably in our UI will have an actual window that comes up and tells you that's what's happening. All right. What's going on?
No, I'm just. I think it might be a good time to answer a couple of the questions. One of the questions is, can you build a new treasure, or is it gone forever?
Great question. In principle, you can't really rebuild your strongholds. And that probably sounds pretty harsh because it looks like that was so easy for me to kill. That was kind of him being dumb, no offense. But at the end of the day, what you're really going to do is you're going to build decks that only rely on some of your strongholds. There are a lot of cards that don't actually really need the treasury because they can be paid for in other ways or because they save their own income in ways that are independent of the bank. We're calling it the treasury now, but so that's a good question. In principle, you can't. There are a few complicated ways that you can resurrect certain things, but the basic game conditions, there are 3 strongholds, and when they're down, they're down. So you have to be careful, and you have to be strategic. It's not that easy to just knock out somebody's stronghold. One other thing I'll say about the bank in particular, which we haven't implemented yet, is that you can burn a card from your hand instantly to create 1 chroma in your bank. So he could have saved himself just by burning a card and instantly blocking my attack, basically. But that didn't happen. Another question, maybe?
Let's see. Looking at the log. By the way, guys, sorry that we don't have more moderators killing spam here. There are just 2 of us, and it's our first live stream, so we don't have a lot of experience or resources with this yet. But we will fix that for subsequent streams.
I can see why you're so quiet. There is a lot of chat happening that I'm ignoring.
Yeah.
Well,
one of the questions came up about and people have been asking, is this a free-to-play game or
you should end your turn so I can keep playing. But
yeah. My bad. So so to answer people's question, yes, it is a free-to-play game. You will be able to buy cards in the store. Basically, what we're trying to do with this model is recreate kind of a classic, kind of a traditional trading card game or collectible card game, like you would have if it was like a physical game. So we want people to be able to go and buy cards, of course, because some people want to play but don't want to pay. We want to cater to those people as well. But we don't want to get in the way of the enjoyment of either one of these kind of player groups.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we care a lot about free players and want to make sure that they're able to play the game without a disadvantage, is the bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I've actually just drawn my Black Balrog, which is a very, very strong demon. He costs 9, and he is going to wreak havoc on Jon-Pal, since he, well, unless he does something about it, since he only has weak little sharks. So let's end my turn here, and I will show you that guy next turn.
So, George, you want to talk a little bit about our plans for beta?
Yeah. Well, this game's evolving every day, really. We're putting more artwork in it. We're putting more UI into it. We're going to be demoing this game live at Gen Con in 2 days already, 3 days, all this week. And really every step of the way, it's going to get a little bit better. Now, we will be back from Gen Con, obviously, next week, and that might be a time that we start offering some betas to people at our website. I'll pop over there just for one split second. Where is it? You see, this is our website right here. You can get to it from the Kickstarter page pretty easily. You can go up here to where it says account, and you can create your own account and just log in and contribute to our forums, ask us questions there if you want. But this is where you'll probably find out, as well as the Kickstarter page, which I have right here, where you'll find out about our betas and when those are going to happen.
Yeah, so I mean, some people are asking about how to get into closed betas. What we're going to be doing is, over the course of the Kickstarter, like George was referring to, we'll have times, kind of limited time periods where we'll have betas kind of opening and running, and those won't necessarily be restricted. So people that are interested, all they have to do, like George mentioned, is go to the site, register for an account, and then just kind of stay tuned so that when we publish the times for those beta events, you're just there and you can participate and help us test the game, find bugs, give us feedback about what you like, what you don't like.
Right.
We want this to be a kind of a community development. So we want to get people involved, people that have backed us on Kickstarter, and people that haven't yet, or maybe don't want to back us on Kickstarter but still are interested in the game. That's fine as well. We'd love to kind of have you on there and give us your feedback.
Right. This is the website again. There's a delay in when I'm clicking on things and when you're seeing it, so I want to come back here. All right, let's pop back into the game. Is it my turn?
I believe, let's see. All right, I'll end turn.
All right.
I am pretty restricted at this point in the game because, I made this silly move of not blocking George's creature, but that's
very
also
silly.
That's also in the purposes of showing the gameplay and showing what happens. What we're calling, this element of adaptive strategy.
Right.
If your opponent is dumb, his strategy has to adapt.
Right. That was a demonstration. Right. Thank you for the demonstration, Jon-Pal. That was very nice of you.
Yeah.
Normally he would play well. Okay. Well, all right. I'm going to show no mercy here. I'm going to move my Black Balrog, which is this big creature, over here to attack. But what I'm actually going to do before I attack is I'm going to cast a spell. Now, Chromancer is a little bit different from some card games in that really the creatures drive the play. A Chromancer is basically a summoner of various forces, but doesn't really cast spells himself. So I'm going to actually have to use my red creature to cast a red spell out of my hand. That's going to use up his turn, but it's going to be effective. So this red Hordling here, I'm going to select from all these options. They're automatic based on what's in my hand. And I'm going to choose Fireball. It's a ranged spell, so I can hit any of his guys, but I'm going to hit the guy here who's trying to defend his graveyard. And I will try to target that guy. So I just click there to show you that I can stop the action myself, too. You'll see in a moment that this little window up here, I've clicked on it and it's paused what's happening in the game. So if I wanted to actually add some kind of effect to my spell, like some other additional spell, there's a spell called Afterburner that makes my spell more powerful. It's like a counter spell to my own spell. I could put that here.
George, one of the questions I think is no, I don't.
Right.
One of the questions I think is good to answer is someone's asking about some of the perks on Kickstarter. How many cards do you get in one pack? How many packs do you anticipate the typical player to need, and what's the minimum number to make a good deck? So
Okay.
just kind of give a sense of
Sure.
what do you really need to get started, and what's useful, what's kind of overkill maybe for someone wanting a basic experience or something like that.
Well, to start with, we have starter decks, which are 48 cards, and there's only 24 cards in an actual deck, so you can build at least 2 decks, but there are enough cards in that starter deck that you can build and learn the game through it, several different iterations of decks. And those are very easy to get, and I think that's our lowest level on Kickstarter. Booster packs are 7 cards, which is pretty reasonable considering a 24-card deck size. They never include fields. Those will just be automatic that you'll have access to those. And they do have the opportunity to get some of the rarer cards. So if you're thinking of starting out playing Chromancer and you have a starter deck and 5 or so booster packs, be in a pretty reasonable position to play the game effectively. And I hope what's coming through is that this is very much a game of strategy and not just having the right cards. So having a big collection will let you make more interesting decks, but it's more about how you play than pay to win or having more cards or something like that.
Yeah, one of the other questions as a follow-up is whether cards can be shared across decks. That's actually a really good question. The system that we're planning to implement, again, we want to streamline convenience and usability as much as possible. So, let's say you need in a certain deck to have 4 copies of one card. In order to complete that specific deck, you will need to have 4 copies of the card. You can't just have 1 copy and copy it 4 times. You actually need to have purchased or earned 4 copies. However, if you have, let's say, 2 separate decks, and the first deck requires 4 copies of the card, and the second deck requires 2, you'll only ever need to have 4 total copies, and those can be shared at any given time across those decks.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're not going to make you take apart a deck to use a card in another deck. I mean, we're online, we're virtual, we're taking advantage of that. I think that's pretty normal. There might be one exception in which we have tournaments that are collectors tournaments in which you have to bring to the tournament built decks and you can't trade between them, but that will be a very unique thing. I just want to very quickly show you that I've actually been able, after doing all this stuff like attacking during my turn and whatnot, I'm actually still able to continue to draw cards, discard cards, and continue with my turn and do other things. So you really can kind of play your turn in whatever order you want. And now that I've drawn a forest, I'm going to just play that now. I'm going to put that here and sort of give my creatures access to this left side of the board. I'm going to want to build a couple extra structures there to generate more income. This Balrog, as powerful as it is, you saw that it destroyed his both his creature and his graveyard. The Balrog attacks twice every turn. As powerful as it is, it has an upkeep cost that's really draining my income, so I'm going to try to build some more structures out here. Anyway.
So another question that's come up, which I think is a good one to answer, is about trading, being able to trade cards between players. What are the restrictions, if any, on that? And whether there are matches where cards can be put on the line as ante, and kind of the winner gets the ante.
Sure. Yeah, well, first of all, great question. First of all, we are of the mind that we shouldn't restrict trading in any fashion, that if players want to trade A for B, they should be able to, whether that's cards, whether that's packs of cards, whether that's our online currency, whether that's tickets to a tournament, or whether that's some other online good that the player manufactures. Maybe the player is putting out a newsletter about his opinion on the market, and the other player is agreeing to trade him something for access to that. We're interested in facilitating that kind of play because we consider that to be productive and good just for the health of the game, honestly. Specifically, though, you were saying whether you could put something up for an ante in a tournament. I think that there will regularly be tournaments where there are antes. They might be pay-to-enter tournaments with virtual currency where you stake a card or whatever. We'll let players decide that a lot of the time. But yes, of course that will exist. And there will also be tournaments where you're not putting up an ante and you're earning some virtual currency for victory. So there will be ways for example, free players not to risk anything and grind out some currency and advance their accounts that way.
Yeah. Another question that's coming up is, whether we're going to have a ladder type matchmaking system where there's something like an ELO rating, so you can play players close to your level.
Yeah. We'll all try to beat Matt. He's an incredible card player. The first time I ever showed Matt Chromancer, I invented this game. I invented it 6 years before I showed it to Matt. The first time I showed him the game, he destroyed me. So the first time. So he's a pretty good card player. Maybe he'll be at the highest ELO rating. But we'll definitely have a ranking system, and we have to figure out how that works, honestly. I think ELO is a good system, but it's up to us and our community as we all play together to figure out exactly how to work on the rankings and how that works. But absolutely, it's important when you're playing a card game like this, a strategy game, that you're not in a situation where you press the random fight button and you're constantly fighting players who are way more advanced than you are and way more capable. That's just not fun. So we'll make sure that we don't have that. All right, I need to start playing and stop talking. So I will move my Balrog. I need to pay attention. It seems like you're killing my creatures when I'm talking.
That's my strategy, George.
It's just total nonsense.
That's the advantage that somebody who's has an overview of the chat will wield over someone who's doing the chatting.
Yes, strategy for Chromancer: distract your opponent. All right.
Actually, that's a good kind of segue into another question that we have on the chat. Donald's on over here is asking.
Building my Pyrolydium now, by the way, for anyone who's paying attention. There we go.
All right. Well, the question on the board is, are there make or break decisions? Can you make a mistake and recover decently? Maybe that's a reference to my dumb neglect of my treasury early in the game.
That's a very hard question to answer. It's a very good question. By definition, anything that's involved strategy, you can make a mistake that's stupid enough that it can make you lose. I mean, that's just how games work, I think. But in general, this is absolutely a game that plays out over many strategic decisions, and you can forget to draw a card one turn, or you can forget to play your creature one turn, or use your income the wrong way, and absolutely be fine. It's over a course of several turns and time that this game plays out, and you're not going to just lose because of one small mistake. Most of the time. If it's a really dumb mistake, you might lose, but hopefully not. All right, I'm going to need to start to discarding a few cards again to keep my graveyard supplied. Well, it's got 3 cards in it, and he can't really do very much. One of the disadvantages of sharks, the cards that he's playing, are that they're creatures, they're wild creatures, and so they can't actually, on their own, attack my strongholds. So I actually don't even have to defend these things right now. So there are all kinds of advantages and disadvantages to each type of card, of course. Now the real problem is going to be if he somehow draws a shark tamer of some kind, which is going to make all of his guys more vicious. We'll see about that. Also, I hope everybody realizes that the game usually plays out much more quickly than this when we're not answering lots of questions and so forth. You can see basically that it's a positional game. Jon-Pal has just done something here which I think is interesting. He's put 2 creatures in the same space. So there are many games out there, many card games that have slots, lanes, in which you can only have 1 creature per lane. And that we find that kind of limits the strategy a little bit. It's a little bit annoying. Everything gets in the way of everything else. In this game, you can put as many creatures as you want, basically, in the same spot, and you can stack them. Sometimes they confer abilities on each other when they're in that position. It just helps you defend a position better. And so the game is more positional rather than slotted. It's strategic where your creatures are, but it's not important that they only be 1 to a space. Anyway.
Yeah, you should go on playing, George, but there's a very interesting question on deck by Strophium. So his question is that, by adding cards, you say, or we're saying that you allow for more interesting or unique decks, but the design favors strategy over deck structure. So
it's actually your turn. You need to end your turn. Sorry.
My bad. So the question is, kind of what's the relationship between kind of strategies that revolve around like kind of combo-oriented decks or deck structure versus other decks that have a very specific win condition. I mean, I think that
what was? I'm sorry. Say that question one more time.
So I'll read the entire question. See what you get out of it. So you said adding more cards allows for more interesting, unique decks. The design favors strategy over deck structure. Have you found this approach to interfere with strategies that revolve around deck structure, such as combo-oriented decks or other decks that have a specific win condition?
So, yeah, adding more cards. Well, I mean, I think the answer to that question is that it's pretty similar to most TCGs out there. You absolutely can build a deck based on a basic combo, but you're just less versatile if you do that. You're much more susceptible to other deck types that can beat you easily.
I think that the crux of it is that with Chromancer, you have to think about how you want your deck to play in order to achieve one of the 2 win conditions. So maybe we weren't specific on this when we introduced the stream, but The point of the game is to destroy the other person's 3 structures, or to collect 100 chroma. And whichever one of those happens first, you win.
Right.
So as you're putting together a deck, you're trying to think, okay, how am I gonna achieve one of those? And maybe you want to turtle and achieve kind of the chroma win condition, or maybe you want to be very aggressive and take down structures.
Right.
So you know,
to be fair, I mean that's a minority of cases, but yes, there is a secondary win condition, which is that if you accumulate 100 chroma, which is the resource, you instantly win the game. So that's kind of the basis upon which a lot of stall decks will be built, where you're just trying to defend and save income. That is another strategy, another style.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that win condition exists, because you can very easily get into a game where you're very evenly matched, and then you'll suddenly realize that your best strategy is to try to accumulate the 100 resources, and it will shift the paradigm of the entire game, and you'll suddenly say, okay, I don't need to defend this anymore, I'm just going to outrace you, and you can win a game that way.
Exactly. So just to kind of reiterate so everyone's clear, essentially the point of the game is you're trying to destroy the other person's structures. So the bank, your castle, and the graveyard. And again, as you go about doing that, the adaptive nature of the game kind of takes effect, because if you destroy somebody's treasury, they won't be able to store chroma that sufficiently or that significantly hamstrings their strategy. So if your opponent is playing with a deck that relies heavily on resource generation, and you identify that and attack him where his strategy is most based on, you can generate a significant advantage. So there's almost like a meta strategy game taking place while you're playing, which is to try to figure out, how is this opponent trying to defeat me, and how can I best disable him? If that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the funny thing. It's a little bit like poker. I don't know how many people out there play poker. The great thing for me, anyway, about poker, and I'm no expert, but that I enjoy about it, is that I find the most relevant thing in poker is trying to understand what your opponent is doing, because you pretty much know what you're doing. And that's very, very true in Chromancer. If you can quickly realize that your opponent is trying to get to 100 resources to win, or trying to attack a particular point, or relies on one of your particular strongholds, you can focus your attack on that and quite quickly beat him in a lot of cases, because you've figured out basically his strategy. On the other hand, if you go and attack his bank and he's playing a cheap deck where he doesn't need to save income from turn to turn, you'll probably waste a lot of time and effort on that. So let's try to play through the rest of this game so that people can see it develop.
Sure.
Obviously, we'll keep taking questions, but just so that this isn't too slow-paced. Oh, it's my turn again?
Yep.
Great. So, fireball. Who shall I fireball? Let's see here. I'm going to hover over these guys to see how much life they have. 6 life, 6 life. Stupid sharks, so much life. Fireball only hits you for 4. Alright, well in that case I'm going to draw some cards. See if I can't get something else to kill you with. As you can see, because I have a lot of money, I can just draw tons of cards right now. The first one costs 0, the next one costs 1, the next one costs 2, 4, and so forth. Alright, you know what? I'm just going to do what red does best and spam him. Start laying a whole lot of creatures. And then on my next turn, I'm just going to all-out attack him and see how he manages with that strategy. Okay. I will discard this because I don't really need it. That's a spell that adds movement to all my creatures. I'd like to keep it in my graveyard so my graveyard's not too low. End turn. Wow, lots of questions. Again, we are trying to get to as many questions as we can. By all means, ask us questions on our forums at our website. We have a whole team that can respond there, and also we'll see all your questions that way if they don't get answered here. And we'll, of course, try to have more live streams in the near future. Let's see what he's doing here. He's got a whole lot of fields, which means he's got a whole lot of income. So I should be quick in trying to put him away I only have to destroy this castle right here to win the game. I've destroyed his other 2 strongholds. He's defending it well, but if I were him, at this point I have so much income and I've got creatures that don't have an upkeep that I would just be trying to accumulate as much money as possible, and I'd try to achieve the win condition of owning 100 chroma. That's our currency. So I better stop him by attacking him.
So yeah, I just want to reiterate at this point, because someone did bring up a comment in the chat that all of these are placeholder graphics. So the pawns that we're playing with are obviously
Yes.
not the final product. Even the tiles that we're using now are placeholder. These will be upgraded. We're going to be implementing the card artwork, etc.
Yeah, this is an alpha product. These are placeholder graphics. Part of the reason that we're running a Kickstarter campaign, in fact, most of the reason that we're running a Kickstarter campaign, is that we need to pay for professional art. So you can see we've gotten some good art, and you can see behind me. I'll make that bigger just for a second. Hang on here.
No, that's the. Oh, yeah.
You can see behind me here that we've got obviously some pretty good art going as well. Why are you turning that back on? You can see behind me that we've got some pretty good art here. Sorry, we lost audio for a second there. So we've got great artists working. It's just a matter of paying for it, and that's why we're running a Kickstarter campaign. Anyway, this hopefully whets your appetite for more. If you want to see some of the artwork ahead of time, you can find that on our website. We have a section of the website called the Workshop that showcases a lot of our art as it comes in. We're updating it every day. And you can find similar things on our Kickstarter and Facebook as well. Okay, is it my turn?
Yes, it is.
All right, let's try to win this game. I'm going to put this forest here. Again, the reason I'm putting a forest across from his castle is because when I move my creatures into the void, which I can do, they gradually lose life every turn. And since red creatures don't have a lot of life, they have a lot of attack power but not a lot of life, I don't want to do that. I want to put them on a field where they'll be safe. So I'm going to move here. All these little red hordlings are very weak, but they get a bonus when they're attacking, which incentivizes you to attack with them more often. So they will have 3 attack power each. So you'll see, though, that the guy that I just attacked with has been killed and gone to my graveyard because he's defending with sharks that have rather a lot of attack power as well. So I do have the advantage here because I am the attacker, and my guys do have attack bonuses, but it's going to take some doing to kill them off. So, Squall Tamer.
So there are a couple of questions on fields, George. Maybe we could address real quick. One of them
Sure.
is, can you attack fields and destroy them? I think that's fairly easy to answer. The answer to that is yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a way that you can try to cut down your opponent's income is by going and eliminating his fields. The other question was whether we plan to have fields with different properties, maybe ones that generate extra chroma or that kind of boost your chroma production.
Yeah, we had that question earlier. Yeah, to reiterate very quickly what he said, a very common strategy in Chromancer is to try to lock down your opponent's income by destroying all of his fields. And that's something that you can do. You just attack it with a creature. If it's undefended, it gets destroyed. And we do have other field types that you can use in your decks that often actually have a cost to play, but then generate more income. These are all, the standard fields are all free to play. And you can just play them for free and they generate 1 income per turn. So yeah, there's an array of things that you can do. It's your turn, technically.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So hopefully I will be able to kill him. Maybe not quite next turn, but maybe the turn after that. If I am not getting ahead of myself here.
Well, we only have a couple of minutes left on the stream. We're set to close it down around 5. But like George said, I am kind of at my last reserves here, so just trying to wreak some havoc on his graveyard. But as you can see, he already has cards in his graveyard which act as a buffer, which act as health points, if you will. If he had 0 cards in his graveyard, it would die instantly, just as any other structure. So right now, I'm going to end my turn, and George might actually be able to kill me next turn, depending.
I'm going to try. Let's see. First, I'll try to draw some creatures here. That's a good one. I'll put him right there. Try to draw another creature, and I didn't get one. So I'm going to discard a couple of cards also to keep that graveyard pumped up so he can't destroy it. And I will move this guy into position.
So since we're kind of getting towards the last few minutes of the stream, if there are any last minute questions or questions you feel weren't answered, just feel free to type away. We'll try to get to as many of them before the time limit as possible. But other than that, like we've mentioned, we're going to be at Gen Con in just a couple of days. We're going to be at PAX Prime later this month, towards the end of the month. We'd love to have any of you come and say hello, try your hand at the game. We're going to be coming out with plenty of updates in terms of graphics, new card artwork, fixing up the UI. Everything is kind of advancing, even while we're in the process of going through this Kickstarter campaign. So yeah, I mean, we look forward to having you guys join us, and like I said before, give us your feedback, comments, join the discussion on our website chromancer.com, on our forums there, or find us on Facebook and Twitter as well.
That's right. And in the meantime, I have killed Jon-Pal. I have destroyed his castle. As you can see, he's got nothing left. Game over.
Yeah. One of the last questions coming in from SAS is, whether they'll be able to try out the game before launch. Absolutely. So while the Kickstarter is going on, I mentioned this earlier, but we're going to be having kind of open beta runs, if you will, probably on weekends. We'll set a time, a couple of hours, where we can invite basically anyone who wants to come in. You don't even have to be a Kickstarter supporter. It would be nice if you were, but literally, if you're interested in the game, come on over. We're interested in having you try it out and give us your feedback. You'll be able to try the game, build some decks, and experience what the latest iteration of the build is.
Absolutely, and tune in for our next live stream as well, because we've got quite a lot of cards actually implemented. I was playing demons, he was playing sharks. We didn't really play that many complicated things like spells and so forth, but we've got a lot of those in the system already. And we'll do some things that are a little more interesting with those things next time. But yeah, be present at our website, post to our forums, comment on the Kickstarter, and we'll get to all of your questions. We're, hopefully very quickly too. We're very keen to communicate with everybody.
Yeah.
We can go through a couple more questions maybe before we log off here.
So yeah, if anyone wants to post any last questions, George, I don't know if you're able, but you could kind of put up some artwork that we could see.
Yeah, let's look at some artwork
from the page even.
This is our website here.
Well, it's not showing up on the screen though.
Well, it takes a second. So here on our website, you see down here, we've got the workshop. You just click there, and it will show you some of our latest art. This is a beautiful piece by one of our better artists, Forrest here. You were asking about whether that art that we were just showing you is the real art. Well, this is the real art for Forrest. And you can just scroll through all our various images. Hit the next one here. This is a structure called Balefire Pillar, this next one.
So I missed a couple of questions in the chat. I was briefly disconnected. One of the questions is, when is the next live stream? Well, we haven't scheduled it yet, but we were thinking of doing one sometime in the middle of August, after we're back from Gen Con, probably the week of the 20th of August. Because we'll be back, we'll have a little bit of time to kind of recover from the convention and prepare for the next one. So, look to see a next stream around that time. Master Fletch, there was a question around, or do all take place in the Void? I must have missed the first part of that. So if you could repost that in the chat, we'll get to that and then probably close out after we answer that last question.
Anything else? Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching us. Thank you for all your support on Kickstarter. And, if there's anything that you have, questions, concerns, interests, just let us know. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to address any questions and show you as much as we can of the game before we go live, too, in our betas and our demos. So thanks a lot, guys. One last question or no? Okay, I think that's it. So signing off. See you guys next time. Cheers.